Anthony, thanks for sitting down with me today. I appreciate your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Great. Anthony, when the Canadian Plant Breeders' Rights updates to UPOV 91, because we're anticipating that's going to happen sometime before the end of the year.
Yes. Yeah.
What does that mean for plant breeding in Canada?
Well, it's very exciting for plant breeding in Canada. It's something that plant breeders and actually the farming community have been waiting for quite some time. And what it's really going to mean is it's going to benefit both plant breeders and farmers, and it's going to do so by strengthening the intellectual property framework. So it's going to be far more attractive for investment in plant breeding. So it's going to benefit not just our public sector breeders who use PBR protection, but also encourage private sector investment. It's also going to encourage breeders from overseas who have intellectual property protection on par in other countries to bring those varieties to Canada. And really the net choice is going to be a benefit to farmers, access to more innovative varieties to help them remain competitive internationally. So we're pretty excited about it, and we think it's going to be a boost for the agricultural sector.
Where's that going to take farm safe seed?
Well, it's a really good question. Ministers made the comment, and we've emphasized it through all our consultations. It's actually going to really strengthen farm safe seed. It entrenches in law a farmer's ability to save, clean, treat, store, and reuse that farm safe seed as long as they've made an initial qualifying purchase of seed, and do so for as long as they wish on their farm. So it's really going to entrench in law that ability to do so.
Which secures any concerns that people have about it affecting?
Absolutely. One of the misconceptions very early on is somehow this was going to impact farm safe seed, and we wanted to be very clear in the legislation that that's not the case. Farmers will have that ability to continue to do that.
So then the next obvious question is, how is this going to be enforced across the country? What do you think that's going to look like?
Well, it's very interesting. Intellectual property protection, both in patent and PBR and copyright, is very different than regulatory roles. So it's really up to the rights holder to enforce the right in the marketplace. So if they believe an infringement is occurring, it's dealt through the civil court system, and it's their responsibility to identify infringements and bring those infringements to civil court and seek remedy for it. So that's not uncommon. It's the same in the patent world. It's the same in the copyright world, and it's no different with plant breeders' rights.
Can you explain to us a little bit about what seed varieties are going to be affected and how is that determined? That's
a really good question. So the way that the legislation comes into force is those varieties that were protected under the old Act, which was based on UPOV 78, will continue to live on in the old Act for as long as they're protected. So sometimes they will reach the 18 years of protection, the full duration that they're entitled to. More often than not, they're surrendered earlier. The rights holder says, I really don't have any more value for this variety. But anything that's pending in the system now, the day that the legislation comes into force, and anything that comes into effect afterwards will benefit from UPOV 91. So we are going to have this transition time in the marketplace where there's going to be varieties out there protected under the old law, and then new material coming in through the system that's going to be protected under the new law. Now I should also mention that a lot of varieties either reach the end of plant breeders' rights protection or surrendered early, and those fall into the public domain, and farmers can use those without any access restricted whatsoever. Right, okay. So will a royalty system come into place with this, and how do you anticipate that looking? Yeah, so we don't anticipate right away any major changes to how the royalty system works. Under the current Act, a royalty is collected on what we call the propagating material, and that's the seed of the variety. And it really sort of depends on the sector that it serves. In the ornamental world, so flowers, it's usually on the sale of every flower that's made. A royalty is remitted back to the breeder. It's different in the agricultural world. It tends to be embedded in the price in the certified seed, so on every bag that's sold. So we don't anticipate that changing initially with the Act. There has been some interest within the value chain from producers and breeders to maybe move to a different system of value capture in the future. We see in other countries things like an endpoint royalty in Australia or in France. We have built the system that we could accommodate that in future, but really have to stress that there would have to be consultation with the stakeholder community to do that. We'd have to look at best practices in other UPOV member countries, and it's not something we anticipate right away. So initially, day one, when the Act comes into force, the royalty collection scheme isn't going to change.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the question I think that's probably on every farmer's mind is, well, what's the benefits of complying with this? What's the benefits of following these new rules that are designed to protect everyone? What's the benefits to the farmer?
Well, the benefit is, it's to the agricultural sector as a whole. It's to farmers, it's to breeders, it's to others in the value chain. And I guess I would point out that, if you're a farmer that's involved in, illicit activities, selling brown bag seed, so taking seed, not seeking authorization of the rights holder and selling that, you end up doing a lot of damage to the sector as a whole. First, you deny the breeder an opportunity to collect a royalty on that, and in the effect in the private sector is, well, they won't invest. In the public sector, it denies them an important source of revenue. So institutions like University of Saskatchewan Crop Development Centre rely very highly on royalties from PBR protected varieties that they plow back into their breeding program. It also undermines fellow farmers who are playing by the rules and purchasing PBR protected varieties, and when they do so, there's a portion of that sale being remitted to support breeding programs, and also seed growers and dealers who are also farmers and playing by the rules. So really, when you are making a legitimate purchase of a PBR protected variety, you're supporting long-term investment and sustainability in the agricultural sector, and that's a good thing.
That's really well said, Anthony, because I think that what's good for farmers and good for plant breeders and good for the industry at large is a good move for Canada. Absolutely.
It's a win-win situation, and you have to realize that farmers and breeders are dependent on each other. Farmer does well, breeder does well, breeder does well, farmer does well. So the real goal here is to support innovation and investment in the agricultural sector as a whole.
I appreciate you taking the time to shed some light on this. I appreciate your insights.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.